Hello friends, welcome back to my channel English Notes. Today's topic of my notes is Theme in Tom Jones by Henry Fielding. So let's start. Human nature. The narrator explains to the reader in the opening chapter that human nature is the main provision on offer. He does not intend to make any judgments on human nature, but instead wants to present it as a dish would be offered on a menu. Much of the criticism of Tom Jones was in response to the licentious behavior of characters such as Molly Seagrim, Mrs. Waters, and Lady Bellaston, not to mention Tom Jones himself. However, Fielding did not want to create any necessarily moral text that ignored the truth of how people are. He believed human nature has capacity of he believed human nature has capacity for good and evil and want to explore those contradictions. Further, it is important to note that Fielding was not advocating or defending any of the immoral behaviors of his characters, but merely presenting their action as steps on the road to great wisdom. Indeed, each of the major characters already mentioned undergoes a learning process, and redemption is offered to anyone who seeks it. Molly Seagrim is a passionate and lusty young woman. She bewitches Tom into his first sexual experience. She bewitches Tom into his first sexual experiences and attempts to ensure him as protector by having his child. Tom laughs when he discovers she is having an affair with Square and when he learns he is not the father of her child. Molly finally settles with Patrick at the end of the novel and so ends up with someone to love and support her. Mrs. Water or Jenny Jones is accused of Mrs. Waters or Jenny Jones is accused of being Tom's mother, after which time she leaves the area of ultimate ends up living and married with Captain Waters. She Waters. She not only carries on a further affair with Northerton, but also quickly strikes up a dalliance with Tom. However, she does have a capacity for honesty and gratitude, and so we are to be happy when she finally settles into a legal marriage with Person Supple. Lady Bellaston, the demure preys on younger men and has an unsavory reputation about town. Nightingale is quickly able to ascertain that she does not want to be saved from this life of vice, so recommends that propose Tom proposes to her to break her ties to him. Shocked at his proposal and unwilling to make the compromises that marriage would require, Lady Bellaston dismisses Tom as a villain. She receives no reward in the narrative. Tom makes numerous impetuous impetuous decisions and moral error in the course of the story, but he also exhibits many positive qualities which balance out his vices. Fielding's purpose Fielding's purpose in the development of his characters. Tom is particular is illustrated by a comment from the dedication. I believe it is much easier to make good men wise than to make bad men good. In other words, through Tom he expresses his belief that even good men falter but from folly, not necessarily from evil. Hypocrisy. Of all of the weakness of mankind, Fielding viewed hypocrisy as the most pernicious and damaging. When referring to Master Blifil in Book 3, the narrator makes a thoughtful observation on the menace of his duplicitous ways. A teacher's friend is the most dangerous enemy. Both religion and virtue have received more real discredit from hypocrites than the wittiest profligates or infidels could ever cast upon them. The novel seeks to highlight hypocrisy across the social spectrum through the lens of humor. Woody Seagram condemns Molly for falling pregnant, yet Yet it is revealed that she gave birth within a week for her own marriage. Further, we discover later that she shared in the profits of iniquity with her daughter after Molly's relationship with Mr. Squat is exposed. The hypocrisy of the lower class is further illustrated. The hypocrisy of the lower class is further illustrated when fair Molly is viciously attacked in the churchyard after attending church in a fine dress. They are driven by envy, but disguise it in moral terms to justify their ire. Fielding also explores the double standards of the medical profession. Doctors frequently misdiagnose condition as fatal. It happens to Tom Allworthy and Mr. Fitzpatrick in order to increase their earnings. The most ridiculous of these situations occurs when Captain Blifil is found dead of an apoplexy. Two physicians have been called, but the patient is already dead. The physicians then both attend on Mrs. Blifil. The case of the lady was in the other extreme from that of her husband, for as he was past all the assistance of physic, so in reality she required none. The arrangement suits both parties, however, as the physicians are earning a fee, and Mrs. Blifil is seen to be mourning her husband with the appropriate level of grief. Squire Weston changes his attitude to Tom depending upon how he perceives the young man's circumstances. Initially, Tom is a great friend of Squire and is frequently welcomed in the Western household. As a young man, Tom's valiant efforts to save Sophia's bud endear him to Tom's va- Tom's valiant efforts to save Sophia's bud endear him to the squire, who proclaims, "I shall love the boy the longest day I have to live." However, this sentiment soon changes when he discovers that Sophia's love for Tom is an obstacle towards her making a profitable match with Blifil. The squire roundly condemns Tom and resolves to keep them apart. He keeps this resolve until Tom's percentage, and therefore his rightful inheritance, is revealed. The square is then taken for the wedding between Tom and Sophia, so happen immediately, and crudely suggests that a grandchild should be born 9 months to the day. Overall, the man possesses true sentiments but is driven solely by greed in the development of his opinions. Fielding illustrates the danger of double standards through even the best of characters. Allworthy resolves to favor Blifil not because he has faith in the young man's character, but because he is not favored by others. Henceforward, he saw every appearance of virtue in the young Henceforward he saw every appearance of virtue in the youth through the magnifying in, and viewed all his faults with the glass inverted. We finally learn that Blifil had been deceiving Allworthy for most of the man's life, but Allworthy facilitates this deceit through his own actions. Marriage. Fielding was an advocate of a balanced and happy marriage. He began the novel shortly after the death of his first wife, Charlotte Craddock, and his deep affection for her is embodied in the character of Sophia. He hopes to immortalize the memory of Charlotte through Sophia, as he unabashedly states at the beginning of Book 13. For riddle me that some tender maid, whose grandmother is yet unborn, hereafter, when, under the fictitious name of Sophia, she reads the real words which once excited in my Charlotte, shall from her sympathetic breast send forth the having sigh. The institution of marriage is, like the book's other issues, explored through each strata of society. We see Mrs. Partridge and the envenomed wrath with which she attacked her husband after hearing the speculation that he has made Jenny Jones pregnant. This reflects this anger Mr. Fitzpatrick feels for the lieutenant, who is more engaged by his wife's wit than by his own. Jealousy and unsuitability abound and their destructive effects almost force the story to an ultimately ends. Fielding employs an allusion to Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet in Sophia Street to stab herself in the heart rather than marry Blifil, and the squire's own treat to cast her out if she does not. The reader can see the irony here in the in that the story is brought dangerously close to tragedy over this issue. It is only resolved when the lovers are allowed to be together, and this is only enabled by a change in their circumstances, not their affection. The potential for marriage to engender the potential for marriage to engender tragedy remains, even if our heroes escape it through fortunate revelation. Before the novel Before the novel was completed, Fielding had married Mary Daniel, his housekeeper. She was pregnant by him, and Fielding braved a public scandal to stand by her. Through the relationship of Nightingale and Nancy Mallor, the novel reflects the potential for happiness despite a match outside social expect despite a match outside social. Mrs. Weston's several treatises on marriage exhibit the socially accepted norms of marriage, particularly for the higher classes. She variously describes marriage as being considered, as men do, offices of public trust only as the means of making their fortunes and of advancing themselves in the world. The philosophy is evident in her promotion of Lord Philamur as a suitable husband for Sophia, even though he has been physically aggressive to her. She sees only the financial and social implication, as does Lady Bellaston. She is happy to court Tom and to assist him financially, but is not prepared to subjugate herself socially or materially, which is what marriage would require. Contrast. Fielding celebrates the contrast evident in English pantomime and employs this effectively through the novel. This is manifest both through the opposing setting of the country and the city, and through characters and action. The first characters we see in opposition to the one another, and Thwackum and Square. Their outlook of philosophies are at best complementary, at worst diametrically opposed. Square held human nature to be the perfection of all virtue, and that vice was a deviation from our nature in the same manner as deformity of body is. Thwackum, on the maintained that the human mind, since the fall, was nothing but a sink of iniquity, till purified and redeemed by grace. Squire Weston and Mrs. Weston are direct contrasts in their approach towards convincing Sophia to marry as they wish. He insists on confining his daughter, whereas Mrs. Weston favors more civilized means. Molly and Sophia are both objects of Tom's affection, and yet have very different qualities. Molly is passionate, forthright, and appeals to Tom's physical yearning, but Sophia rules both his heart and head. Even within the tone of the text, it is possible to distinguish contrast. Tom is at his most wretched as he languishes in prison. Tom is at his most wretched as he languishes in prison, condemned for murder and guilty of incest. His fortunes are rapidly reversed. As he is revealed to be not guilty on all counts, and he is ultimately respected by those he was earlier charged with offending. Fielding himself was a Protestant latitudinarian. That largely means that he believed humanity was able to demonstrate both good and evil, and was free to choose their own direction. He used to contrast in the novel reflects the philosophy as Tom discovers, through his successes and mistakes, the path of happiness. through his successes and mistake the path to happiness. Fortune. The narrator often directs the reader to some events or reaction which is prompted by fortune. Fortune is personified in the text as if it is a physical entity or active constituent of the plot. It is not viewed as a supernatural force. Fielding goes to great pains to condemn the use of supernatural devices as a simple solution to challenges of plot or characterization. Instead, Fortune describes how a character's own qualities are projected into events and situations. Allworthy is described Allworthy is described as the favorite of both nature and fortune. It is apparent that the favor he has is as much propagated by his own benevolent actions by as by any mysterious force. Tom in particular feels that fortune acts against him, and it is only toward the end of the novel that he realizes that his fortune or lack of it is his own creation. But why do I blame fortune? I am myself the cause of all my misery. I am myself the cause of all my misery. He has been subject to good fortune as well as bad. When ill, Allworthy tells the boy that he has much goodness, generosity, and honor. He is offered Sophia's lost pocketbook because he helps the beggar, and his greatest ally, Mrs. Miller, takes Mrs. Miller takes his side because of this. Mrs. Miller takes his side because of this and other selfless kindnesses. Wisdom. Wisdom is Tom's ultimate goal, even if he does not initially realize it. Once he attains wisdom, he reaches the end of his journey and the path is open forward Sophia. In particular, his wisdom lies in accepting that he not fortune determines his path. Tom's adventures allow him to amass wisdom. His relationship with Molly teaches him that woman may not be constant. His devotion to Black George and the theft of his bank notes by the same shows him that the desire to rise from poverty can be stronger than friendship. Blifil's cruel attempts to destroy his half brother indicate that greed can be stronger than family loyalty. There, there, there are also positive lessons that facilitate Tom's ultimate wisdom. Simple kindnesses such as he shows to the beggar and the Hemingway can bring rich reward. Love can remain constant despite adversity. Love can remain constant despite adversity. He wins his Sophia in the end. The chapters where the man of the hill tells his story help Tom acquire wisdom, even though he only hears of another's experience. From the man of the hill, Tom learns the profitless path of gambling and various truths offered by foreign travel. Tom's experiences in London impact further wisdom. He learns of the predatory nature of ladies such as Lady Bellaston. Nightingale teaches Tom how to navigate polite society, and he is rescued from penury by the intervention of friends he had loyally supported. Perhaps Tom's greatest lesson is to respect himself and those around him. The end of the novel reveals the root of Tom and Sophia's successful and enduring union. They preserve the purest and tenderest affection for each other, an affection daily increased and confirmed by mutual endearments and mutual esteem. Fielding certainly wants us to remember, though, that even he, wisest of men, is prone to lapse in wisdom. Allworthy is reverenced for his kindness and wisdom, and yet no man is wise at all hours. Indeed, though Indeed, through his terrible mistake in trusting Blifil over Tom, many people experienced much heartbreak in the story. Money, wealth, and greed. Money and the temptation it offers affect most of the story. Part of Tom's virtue is that he is blissful in Part of Tom's virtue is that he is blissfully ignorant of the greed and negativity which the desire for money can inspire. When he leaves Paradise Hall, he is given money by Allworthy, but bravely realizes it. At a result, he loses it. At a result, he loses it. He scraps by, but refuses to cash the banknote in Sophia's pocketbook, even when prompted by Sophia to do so. His personal poverty prompts him to accept the advances of Lady Billastone, but he almost immediately gives that money to Mrs. Miller to help her cousin. Most other characters shows more weakness in this area. The man of the hill began his downward spiral by stealing, and then by being drawn into gambling. Further inside, Northerton is willing to rape Mrs. Water, would had been his loyal companion, for her jewelry and money. We see that Mrs. Harriet Fitzgerald lost favor with her aunt and a philandering gained a philandering husband, all because he wanted her wealth to pay off his debts. He imprisons her because of her protest, re- re- realize her realize is equally facilitated by money, as she tells her cousin, "Gold, the key to all padlocks, open my doors and set me at liberty." Of course, the most pernicious example of greed comes through Blifil. Both he and his father are undone by their greed. Captain Blifil dies of an apoplexy as he lusts over his brother-in-law Lamb. Captain Blifil dies of an apoplexy as he lusts over his brother-in-law's land. Because of his greed, he dismissed his brother following the match with Bridget, and his brother died of a broken heart over it. One could argue that what kills Dr. Blifil is actually that he has lost his link to the inheritance represented by Bridget. Finally, the young Blifil exhibits incessant cruelty towards his uncle and towards Tom solely so he can keep the Allworthy inheritance for himself. Part of Tom's ultimate wisdom is in realizing that men are flawed and must be forgiven for their weaknesses. He shows a great understanding of greed when he forgives Black George and Blifil for their trespasses at the end of the novel. So friend, this is my notes on theme in Tom Jones. I hope you like it. If you really like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share, comment, subscribe, and friend, don't forget to press the bell icon for more updates. Thank you.